Today's video is called Global Dishonesty versus Demonstrable Reality. And essentially we're going to highlight the dishonesty displayed by these online representatives of the globe. It's great stuff. First we'll have a little video of a so-called debunk, but the only thing here that's being displayed is a man's dishonesty. That's it. And then we'll go on to some comments, and sure enough, the dishonesty continues from these globe representatives online. It's great stuff. Lie after lie after lie. And all they're doing now is digging a bigger hole for themselves. And I love it. But first, we got this character who most of us know. I'm only using this as an educational. I'm only using him, I should say, for educational purposes to highlight what a dishonest liar this man is. And then we'll go on to his fellow globies who, of course, keep the trend going. I'm going to use Big Red as my example because it seems to be a video that has got them so upset and so committed to exposing themselves. Of course, they have to do this because the claims I've made and shown destroy the Verrazano Bridge argument that the towers are leaning away from each other due to curvature. I've given them practical references that show if that is the case, the towers are leaning away, it's down to engineering purposes rather than curvature, as we're about to see. Anyway, let's let this rat give the game away and expose himself. Unfortunately, we do have to listen to a few different clips of this fool, but it is for educational purposes, like I said, to highlight how dishonest these individuals are, okay?
When I sweep to the next picture, and a picture of a side profile of a flat top tower crane that's over 300 foot tall, right next to the plum building is just built, it becomes rather obvious when we look at the gap between the building and the tower at the bottom in relation to the building at the tower at the top. It becomes quite obvious that tower cranes do lean back when they're not holding a weight in front of them. The reason they do that is because they can pick up more weight in front of them. So for you to lie and call me a liar, saying I'm a fake crane operator...
No, that's not how shit works, man. That's not how physics works. Sorry.
Right, so you're claiming that's not how physics works, yet there's loads of citations online regarding the spec of cranes. I've given you a photograph. I'm a professional crane operator myself. You can ask any professional tower crane operator on this earth that is how it works. My deluded, dishonest little friend here.
It's not how physics works. I can't take a thing, hold it out, and then lean back a degree and not expect to fall the fuck over.
Quick question. Would you be involved in a tug of war and stand totally upright, vertical, plumb? Or would you be leaning back so you can get more anchorage, you can pour more? I think we both know the answer. And while we're discussing you pretending to be a crane, you're not bolted to a concrete floor, are you? This guy's clearly stupid and dishonest.
And that cranes don't like lean backwards. You've kind of exposed yourself here, Mr. Dog Walker. Not only have you exposed yourself as a liar, but you've exposed the tactic.
And that's what, about a half a degree, a quarter of a degree?
Oh, right. Now you're admitting that it is leaning back. Just now you said it wasn't leaning back, but now you're saying it is leaning back. Scooby-Doo's less confused, fella. Dear, oh dear, let's forward it to some more delusions from this crown. So it doesn't lean back, that's not how physics works. But now it is leaning back, just a few seconds later. These people just make shit up. But bear with me. Now listen to this fool. I'll forward it a bit, obviously. Leave out some of the incredibly boring bits, which there were lots, as you can imagine. Now listen to this clown.
Chances are the breeze caught it and it swayed a little bit.
So now this idiot is claiming the breeze is blowing the crane backwards. Here's the problem, Sean. When cranes are out of service, they go into their weather vane, essentially, where the slew motors are deactivated, the brakes are raised from the motors, disengaging them. The crane then blows around freely in the wind, yeah? Here's the thing that's going to destroy your statement that a breeze caught it. All cranes face downwind, which means the wind is blowing from behind it, yeah? Which means if the wind had caught it, it would blowing it straight, trying to make it a little bit more plumb, vertical. But it's not, is it? It's downwind. And the crane's still leaning back. Kind of destroyed your silly breeze argument, fella. Dear, oh dear. This is great because check the comment bottom left by a young lady called Rachie. She's basically schooled this fool by doing her own research here just regarding the cranes, and is now telling Sean that what she's found on Google here. Bottom left, if there is no load on the hook, the counterweights will cause the crane to be somewhat unbalanced towards the rear. The crane will lean backwards. So this dope here is now going to read that comment. Listen to him.
No, the counterweights? You mean those things that move forward and backward?
On most of the cranes in Britain, Sean, the counterweights do not move back and forward, mate. They're calibrated, set up, taking into account the height of the crane, the length of the jib, and of course the lifting capacity of that said crane. Based on that information is how much counterweights and how they're calibrated, i.e. how they're set out on the back jib. They don't move back and forwards during each individual lift. I mean, why have we got people online here who clearly do not know what they're talking about, and they're lying? Oh, I forgot, of course, it's a representative of the globe. That's all they've got. Anyway, let's continue.
Yeah, those counterweights move. They're on a gantry. They adjust the...
They're on the back jib and they don't move, son. There are occasionally some cranes that have a back counterweight that moves. They're very rare special cranes, not really seen in the UK, to be fair. Most cranes are calibrated when they're erected and there's no change whatsoever in the counterweight until the crane comes down. All right, fella?
The weight distribution. Not the fucking tilt of the fucking crane, you dumb cunt. Jeez.
Sorry about that. I should have warned you about this fella's language. And bearing in mind, he's speaking to a lady here who's just called him out. And of course, she's just highlighted the fact the counterweights are what makes the crane lean back. The tower's put up plumb. The crane's calibrated at the top of the slew ring, which is the area it slews round by, which is right at the top below the cab. The counterweights are then put in based on the information, jib length, height of the crane, and of course, as a result of that calibration, the crane will be leaning back slightly, okay? This man can't accept that, even though there's a photograph on his screen showing just that, even though a professional crane driver, myself, has told him that, and even though articles online are saying the same, this fool cannot accept it.
Jesus Christ, what a fucking dumb bitch you are.
Mate, you're just projecting, and no offence, we all get a bit passionate online, but you shouldn't really be using language like that, particularly against a young lady. You really make yourself look very, very stupid and scum-like, fella, to be honest.
Even the people that represent this online now are forced to lie, like this clown. Cranes don't lean backwards, but I've just shown you a real world side profile picture of a crane leaning back.
Right, that the wind caught.
Mate, cranes go downwind, dopey. It would have the opposite effect. It would be straightening the tower if there was a really strong wind, not bending it back. Cranes, when they're weather vaned and out of service, point downwind, thus debunking your stupid claim that the wind caught it and bent the tower back. Oh dear.
Yeah, that weight up there takes care of the weight distribution. That's what the weight does. That's what that counterweight's for.
Bear with me. I thought it a bit. Now listen to him at the end of the video here. Listen to him.
Okay, so they lean back a little bit. What does that prove?
Well, that proves my whole point, that all your colleagues online, your globagandist mates who've been lying saying that isn't the case, you've just debunked. That's what that proves. So you're finally admitting it, even though this whole video has been about you supposedly refuting that claim. You've just basically admitted that they are leaning back. Admittedly, you have to be pretty stupid not to. But you might as well have deleted this video now if at the end of it you're claiming that they do lean back in my original claim. You're not very smart, fella. You don't have a Scooby-Doo about cranes, yet you're putting yourself out there trying to discuss things that clearly you don't have a clue. The wind caught it. I mean, fucking hell. Have a word, son. At least you're admitting now that the crane's leaning back and it has been calibrated that way through the counterweights. Dear oh dear. What a confused man he is. The cranes don't lean back. They are leaning back because of the wind. Oh, actually, they are leaning back. At least he got there in the end. But of course, in him doing so, he's kind of highlighted the fact that Mr. Sensible's claims about the Verrazano Bridge leaning back from each other are more than likely, if that is the case, down to engineering purposes and not curvature, clearly. Otherwise, the water would be measurable underneath the bridge, showing curvature. It's not. So it's obvious at this point in time. But anyway, let's get to the comments here. 2 secs. We've got this character here. Are you still insisting cranes lean back to help carry the weight? Does that mean when they swivel the load 90 degrees, leaning sideways also helps? Oh boy, you really did dig yourself a hole when you made that stupid claim in an attempt to round the suspension bridge towers being further apart at the top of the base. You really are silly. I think, young Gravis, it's you who is the silly one, as we've just seen. Where's that? Right below the cab is the slew ring. That's what rotates. You've got motors up there, 2, 4, depending on the size of the crane, is what rotates the crane via cogs, okay? Because the counterweights are actually what's causing the deflection within the tower. Whatever direction the crane's facing, the deflection in the tower will be behind the crane, i.e. the opposite direction of the crane's facing, because it's the counterweights that deflect the tower. I mean, how stupid are these people? Do they actually think I meant the tower was put up bent and leant one way and then the crane spun round? I mean, that's how dishonest and how they have to misrepresent you. Clearly stupid. No, fella. As I've just shown, the counterweights are what cause the deflection in the tower and will be deflecting in whatever direction the crane's facing, the opposite way. If I'm facing north, the deflection will be in the tower south. Alright? Dear. And we got another one. Adam, you do realise the red tower crane can rotate on a mass which is standing still? Yeah. So if the crane rotates 180 degrees to pick something up, it would lean forward. So we've got another idiot that thinks the tower sections were put up like that, bent, and that the crane's spinning round with counterweights on it on a bent tower. No, dopey. The tower shows deflection because of the counterweights. Whichever direction the crane's facing, the deflection will be behind it because of the counterweights. Oh dear, listen how stupid these people are. Is it on purpose, just to misrepresent? Or are they just really stupid? It's a bit of both, to be fair. Any more comments? That's of course the Verrazano Bridge, which obviously, if the towers are leaning away from each other, isn't down to curvature. Cranes and large standing bodies of water prove that. Tower cranes, I should say. And then we'll end with this character, James Skipper, former NASA test engineer. It would seem James's pension is on the stake here, as he just has to troll channels like myself. Got no demonstrable science. If anything, look, commenting on Leo's channel is like poking a hornet's nest with a stick. He seems to have a cult following, said the cannonball delusionist who works for NASA and still thinks reality is exactly the opposite to what can be demonstrated. I don't have any cult following. The regular viewers who come to this channel are like-minded individuals who can think out of the box, can be honest with themselves, can apply common sense and logic, and have got discernment. That's it. There's no cult here. There's no following. It's just like-minded people like myself who can see through the bullshit. And it shouldn't be difficult. But of course, James, ex-NASA, your pension's on the line here. You've got to do a bit of trolling to keep that pension safe because the globe's dead. I know it can't be easy for you, James. I know. Because you were a brave man back in the 60s and possibly the 70s, doing all sorts of dangerous tests for NASA, the Gemini and the moon landing program. So I tip my heart out to you, fella, for doing those things. You're from the old school in that sense. But that's where the respect ends. Because I've seen you badmouthing me in other sections, calling me some sort of flat earth priest or whatever it was, and all sorts of other nonsense. I respect what you did in your youth as a younger man, but you were fooled, James. Doesn't take anything from your bravery in those situations, but overall, NASA fooled you. Whether you choose to believe that or not, or accept that, I should say, is up to you. I know you got your NASA pension, but every single tower crane on this earth tells me that you've been fooled, James. And there's not one person on this earth that can refute me with demonstrable science. Sorry, mate. You've only got to look at the other globe representatives online, spewing bullshit, misrepresentations, dishonesty, delusions. I mean, it's a joke at this point in time, lads. Your own representatives make a mockery of yourselves and the silly ball that you try and defend, which of course is scientifically impossible and at this point in time, quite frankly, absurd.